Okay guys, so we're working on this retractable motor system. We've identified that the servo appears to be bad. The other thing is, at some point I need to figure out why the horizontal stabilizer appears to be tipped so bad compared to the main wing. And I don't know if that's just something about the sloppy assembly. You can see there's a little bit of play in here. Kind of not uncommon on an EPO model. But it's such a pretty model. I mean, I hate to see it flying by and then having this horizontal stabilizer like this and the main wing horizontal. But anyway, back to where we were. Basically what we're trying to do is we're trying to get this servo out that's right here. And I haven't established exactly how I'm going to do it yet, but my theory is that I'm going to be able to use these holes to line up with different components. One of which is this weird modified screw that allows me to take off the control horn, if you want to call it that, which is what spins this thing. But I'm not 100% sure I'm going to be able to do that. It looks like that's a pin actually. So looks like maybe I'll have to rotate this to a different position, and then I can take and run my screwdriver into this hole. I don't know, it's really hard to know exactly what to do because these holes are here for a reason. These are alignment holes to get to certain different devices. And so I'm just going to try to... Okay, so that's going to get me to this screw. So that's going to get me to this, the alternative screw that I haven't reached yet. Okay, so that's good. My hope is that I can just get this freaking servo out, potentially replace it with a better quality servo, and then actually come up with a reliable system. Oh, damn it. I dropped it. Excuse my French, people. Okay, so I'm going to stick my screwdriver to some magnets, and then I'm going to try to lift out that screw that I just dropped. Got it. Okay. So I got both of the screws that are holding the servo on my magnets here. So I'm just going to keep those close by. So now at this point, I actually can try to move this servo. Okay, so the servo is free right now. So now it's just a matter of how do I actually get the servo out of the pocket. And it does seem like I'll be able to get it out. The trouble is, how am I going to relieve, how am I going to separate these two pieces? Because normally there's a screw that would actually hold this on. Well, I don't know, maybe that pin, maybe you're allowed to slide it out on this thing. I can't tell. It doesn't seem like it's anything different than just a normal conventional servo control. But I mean, I could also like bend this out like that and then rotate it around to get that screw accessible. Maybe through this hole. No, not through that hole. That's not going to do any good. I might be able to just get it right here. But I'm wondering what this bottom hole's for. The bottom hole must do something. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm hitting my lamp. I'm just going to rotate this around. It looks like... Not 100% sure. I can undo this screw here, and that'll allow the assembly to come apart a little bit more, but I don't think it's going to get me what I need, which is essentially to get this control horn off. Maybe it's not even attached with a screw, guys. Why don't we just try to separate it without actually taking a screw out real quick? Whoa. It did separate a little bit there. That's weird. I'm sorry, I think the tail is hitting the camera as I'm doing this, guys. Sorry about that. It does have a little bit of play, but that's probably just play, period. Gosh. It's so close. I could probably get the thing out if I wanted to. If I cut a hole, I could at least get to the backside of the servo. But that's not what I want to do. I want to do it right. I want to get this thing taken care of properly. Okay, so if I undo that, then that's going to gain access to that. I mean, the whole thing could just come out too. Like, maybe that's what I got to do. If I undo this screw, then that will allow me to take, maybe if I take this whole boom out, I can take the whole boom out, guys. That's what I'm going to start working on. Looks like if I undo those screws, if I take the whole boom out, then I should be able to get the servo out, maybe. Let's try that next. I just got to pay special attention to the way all this stuff gets assembled so I can put it back together here in a minute. Okay. Put that on the magnet. Off there. So that's going to allow this. You know what? I don't think that's going to free up what I expect it's going to free up. I'm just going to put that back together right there. That is not going to free up what I expected. Let's just get that put away right now. I would rather take this whole housing out if I could. That would be much preferred to what I'm thinking about doing right now. Alright, let's pause it here. Okay guys, so it looks like there's 2 holes here because at one point they were using 2 holes to mount the servo that I'm trying to get out right now. So what I'm doing is I'm just marking this screw because I'm going to have to start disassembling some of this, and it's going to be easy to mix up which one we're dealing with. So I'm just going to start marking them as I go with a distinct color. So the black ones that we took out initially hold the servo in, and then this blue one here is going to be received back. My goal is at some point, it looks like there's actually no screw that holds this control onto the servo. So once I get this out of the way, then I can potentially get the servo out, which means I can potentially fix the servo or replace the servo with like a Metal Gear servo. And it looks to be that this is a plastic servo, but I honestly can't tell. It's really kind of hard to tell at this point. It may be a Metal Gear servo. If it's Metal Gear, that makes me nervous because that means that there's some other reason why this thing fried or stripped out, or maybe it's a Metal Gear on just the tip. So sometimes they'll do that. So there's obviously some more screws here, but I need to be able to remove the correct screws and not just any old screw. I need to be able to take off the screws that matter, not just superficial ones. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to undo what I can get to easily. I want to try to avoid taking off stuff that's going to have springs shooting things everywhere, because that's just going to make it really hard to get this all back together when I'm done. Looks like this is going to take it apart from this outside assembly, and then that's going to give me access to potentially removing this from the whole shenanigans here. And I don't know if you guys can tell from that angle, but I've got these three little magnets, and so I'm just kind of sticking different components on different magnets so that I have them separated apart, and then I kind of have an order of operations. When you're working with these little Chinese screws, especially ones that are plastic threading, they thread in a plastic. It's much like a wood screw, so it's very easy to mix them up because they're going to look a lot the same. Okay, so that relieved that. Okay, cool. So I think we are going to go ahead and undo those screws. And my hope in removing these screws is that we'll be able to just take this whole assembly right out, less the wire. The wire is still going to be attached. And this will hopefully get us access to getting that servo out. Of course, the manual doesn't say anything about this. Because why would they want to acknowledge that you might actually have a problem with a servo that's buried right in the middle of the plane? Certainly not the first time that's happened to me. Can you say F14 Hobby King? Anyway, that's another $300 mistake. No, it's not. That's a sweet plane. I just wish I would have known that it was worth investing in when I first got it. Okay, so I've got that loose. And so that means I can actually take that free of this assembly here, potentially. I'm just, feels like I've still got something bound up. Something's still hanging on there. No, it's just keyed in there, I think, is all. So I'm just going to hang on to this with my armpit. I'm just going to walk this back. Take that out of the collar. Take this out of the collar. Just trying to be gentle. If I break this, it's pretty much a garbage plane. And I don't know what Tower Hobbies is going to say tomorrow. They might say, screw yourself. You broke it. They might say, hey, we're sending you a whole new plane. Just don't do any more work. They might say, we'll send you the servo. They might say nothing. They might not even answer the phone. I kind of expect they're going to answer the phone, because the last time I called, it was like at 7 o'clock or something. Oh, I think I missed one screw. No. I did not miss one screw. I don't think so, at least. Something is not quite right. It's not letting go yet. There's inside screws here that hold these little things on, but I don't want to eliminate those. I want to keep those in place because they have little springs on them. Could just be hitting myself on the prop here. No, there is another screw. I just don't know how to get to it. There's another screw down yonder. Like I said, I'm not sure how to get to it. The screw is... Okay, maybe if it's totally retracted, I can get to it. That's what I'm going to have to do, guys. There's one more set of screws on either side. See? There they are. Once I get these screws undone, I think I can take the whole assembly apart, which means I can gain access to that servo. So, literally taking the entire freaking thing apart, undone all the work that I had done, which is, you know, not Tower Hobbies' fault, but still. This is not what you want to be doing. You want to be flying your plane. It's one thing when you crash into the building or whatever, you share some responsibility, but this is just ridiculous. And not only that, but I'm losing a feature at minimum because that stupid sequencer doesn't seem to be working. Okay, so let's get this thing back lifted up. Oh shit, she feels real loose now. Okay, so we just gotta hopefully just pop this out of the frame here. Sorry I'm blocking you for a second, guys. Okay, so that's out now, so now we're sort of free-ish. And just kind of looking at the way that comes out. Looks like we're free-ish now. So now we got half of the assembly detached. So now I've just got to figure out a way to detach this halfway. I could push out that brass piece right there. I'll point at it with the screwdriver. This brass piece, but I don't think that's going to accomplish anything. There's the screws here. I'd really like to get to those screws there, but I don't think I can get to the other side because there's one on the bottom too. That's why I think the only next logical step would be to actually get the servo somehow freed. And now that I have this arm to a spot where I can actually lever it over, I think that's probably going to be the next step for us. I hope you guys can see what's going on. I apologize if you can't. Sometimes this crap is just ridiculous. It's hard enough to do, let alone film. That feels a little metallic actually on that tip of that servo. Once I get this thing freed off of here, then we should be able to get that servo out. And I might even be able to fix the servo. You guys can see down in there. It's going to be hard as heck to get this thing aligned properly too. It's going to be like near impossible. So I know I'm blocking you guys. Oh, this is so frustrating, guys. I'm sure there's probably like some super easy thing I'm not aware of that I'm missing so far. Or maybe there's not. I don't know. Sometimes these things aren't easy. And that's just the way it goes, you know. They're just a pain in the butt. And this could just be one of those situations. If it was easy, anybody could do it, right? Okay, so I got it rotated. I have a sneaky suspicion that there probably is like a screw or something down here. The trouble is I can't really see any. I can't see any screws when I look into these holes. All of them. I've opened all of them up just to see what's going on in there. And I don't see any other screws. I see a pin right here. And this pin is a pin that we could use to push out that assembly. But you have to have the servo out of the way before you can push that assembly out. And then I suppose it's possible that that pops out too. Let me try. Okay, so that looks like that pin. Oh, it looks like it is sort of like pseudo threaded. That's very weird. If that's threaded, then there sure doesn't look like it's threaded on the top. It's just flat on the top. And what I'm looking at, guys, I'm looking in this hole, and when I pull this back, you can see that there is a little something going on in terms of threads in that shaft. If you get far enough back, you can see them. Alright, I'm going to pause this and I'll show you what I find. Alright guys, I found another screw. You have to stick your screwdriver in and pull it over to the side. Unfortunately, it's loose down there now, so I've got to try to get that out of there with a magnet. So let me go ahead and try to get that out real quick before I forget it's in there. Okay, I've got the screw aligned with that hole now. So I'm just gonna, I'll just show you how I'm gonna do this real quick before I continue on. This one is just a little bit too small to get the screw out. So I'm just gonna rock and shake until, like I can tell it's up on my screwdriver, but it's just not coming out the hole. So sometimes what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to get yourself a small little drill bit that you can hold in your hand. And you're just going to have to open that up. Because really the whole idea is you better get that screw out of there or you're going to forget about it. It's going to cause a problem later. Okay, there it is. Alright, so we got the other ridiculous screw out. So now those two ridiculous screws are the two ridiculous screws that go into the housing. So my guess is that this housing will now be loose to where I can open this housing up. I might be mistaken, Could be totally wrong here, but I think that was something. Yeah, see, that housing is now allowed to open. See that housing there? It's allowed to open, which means I might be able to separate this enough to actually get it out. I am definitely allowed to open that now. Now I just need to figure out what else I've got to take off that I don't know about yet. That's going to allow me to get this servo out. All part of the show, guys. Alright. If I could get a tool in there, it would make it so much easier. Now, there's a very good possibility on the very last step of this video, I'm going to figure out how to do this without having done it this hard way. Or, I'm going to find out that you have to tear the thing apart anyway. Okay, so there is a shaft that's going through into that servo right now. I just don't know if it's just a pin, or if it's screwed in, or what the deal is. But right now, I think I can get that just twisted off. Oh yeah, she's off now. If you look in there, she's off of this. This is just a pin. Now that that pin is free, I should be able to rotate that out and get it out of the way. So I'm trying to grab it with forceps, clip it on, and then pull that out of there. Nope, not going to happen, very likely. At least not the way I did it that time. Okay, so this is free now, so it's just moving free. And just resist the urge to get in a hurry and break a bunch of stuff, because you've gone through all this trouble to avoid breaking stuff. Might as well keep it up for another 2 minutes while you're fighting it. Okay, so now that that's exposed, I bet I can take my flat-bladed screwdriver and push that pin through. Okay, nope, I can't. I can't do that. This video is ridiculous, guys. I even admit that. But I admit that most of my long repair videos are ridiculous. I just want to get the freaking servo out so I can replace the dang thing. Okay, so I've got it popped out of the frame. If I could just get this stupid thing to get out of the way, I could take it out of the way too. And like, it's going to be such a pain in the butt, because what am I going to do when I get another servo? The servo's got to be identical. It can't be just any run-of-the-mill servo that I can figure out. This is ridiculous. Alright, I'm going to pause it. I'll come right back to you guys. Alright guys, I just finally worked this stinking thing out, which was ridiculous. And you can see in there, there's a shaft that goes across. That would normally go in and penetrate into the actual servo. So now my next impossible task is to try to walk this servo out somehow, or maybe even pull this pin out now that we got that plate off of it. That would be also kind of handy if I could just take that off. And it's not feeling like that thing is really designed to come off, but it does feel like the servo might come out now, maybe, if I sort of halfway split open the canopy or the fuselage. It does feel like that is part of the assembly. That feels like it's part of the assembly. And what irritates me about this whole process is, beyond having to do it, is the fact that you just know you're going to jack up your plane somehow by slipping your screwdriver or whatever and marring the crap out of the finish, or, you know, jockeying something around. But at any rate, I think it's kind of miraculous I've gotten this far. So now at this point it's kind of like, well, a no-brainer. I need to get this thing out and try to fix it. And it just sucks. This is literally a brand new plane. Like, brand new, brand new. Not like 3 days old. It's like flew for the first time today. And I had this problem on the first flight, which really ticks me off. So now I'm going to fight this and I'll show you how I get it. Okay, so I just took my screwdriver here and I pried up on that, and that got it at a different angle. So now I'm hoping that I can walk this thing out. And you can see it's really close. You can kind of see it's wanting to kind of work its way out now. So I'm just going to have to spread the plane apart a little bit, I guess, to kind of finish this process. It feels like a Metal Gear servo, like this part is metal at least. My guess is I'll get it open and it'll be plastic inside of that Metal Gear. So I'm going to pause it, I'll show you how I do it when I get it. Alright guys, so I took my screwdriver and I walked it up into this corner here. And you can see it's about ready to come out. And this is kind of funny because we're about ready to have a baby. And so this is probably how my wife feels. Sorry. That's going to get a lot of hate mail. Okay, so for the last step, I take my forceps, I grabbed onto the tip and pulled it out. And that was pretty much the most violent step because I had to bend this other stuff out of the way as it went. And now I'm just kind of pushing the wires and stuff back so that they don't get in a pinch point while we're working the rest of this project. Okay, so the servo's out now. Now normally at this point I would say get that piece of crap out. Well, the thing is that's easier said than done. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to pull that lead toward me. And I will go ahead and unplug it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually just be real careful that I can get that plug back to me. Because at some point I may need to plug this back in, like particularly when I finish fixing it. Because the easiest way to fix this problem, because it's a weird servo setup, remember this thing's got to go back into this hole. And it's got to twist that motor assembly, and of course you've been screwing around and jacking around with it and everything. So it's got the teeth are all jacked up and everything now. But my guess is this thing's going to be all foobarred inside, but we'll find out in a second here. So I'm going to just move all these tools out of the way. I'm going to get myself the correct size screwdriver. Okay, so I got this super dinky screwdriver here. And it's always a real small Phillips. And so I'm going to go ahead and unscrew this now. And get ready to be thrilled and amazed at all the screwed up threads. My guess is we're going to get this opened and everything is just going to be totally screwed up beyond all repair. This is kind of a big servo. I don't think it's a 9-gram servo. It's possible it's a 9-gram servo. Oh, it looks like we did break that on the way out. Which, to be honest with you, is pretty reasonable considering the amount of effort it took to get it out. Okay, so we got all those screws out. Now let's open this little SOB up. Keep it in the orientation so you know what's going on. It looks like a pretty high quality servo actually. Okay, so we got the top off. We're going to leave that in the position it is right now. Which it is most definitely a Metal Gear servo. But it's a Metal Gear servo with a plastic gear at the bottom, which is kind of like, why? Would you ever do that again? Could you explain it to me, please, somebody? Of course, nobody knows. The funny thing is, I don't really see any damage on it. And so I'm a little confused. There was definitely slippage going on. I'm just kind of moving it around here. I don't see anything wrong there. I wonder if the actual gear is broken on one of these things. Ooh. So far, it sounds pretty good. Ooh, I hear slipping. Oh, you know what? I wonder if right up inside there where it receives that shaft, it was allowed to slip somehow. The other thing is I'm going to push this out and see what's going on there. Maybe that's slipping. I don't see any significant damage there, other than what we had damaged on the way out, which is pretty good. I don't know, guys. It sucks because I don't see like 100% definitive issue, but that doesn't mean it's going to work. It just means I can't see it. So now the next step for me is to reassemble this and see how it operates. So obviously we'll leave it open so we can watch it operate. So I'm going to turn my radio on. I'm going to get my throttle